As they come around to take the green flag, we are underway. J.K. Vernet, Jake Query, he'll take the early lead. A great jump for J.K. as he's the leader in 2.
And he takes that big jump, and as he does so, behind him, James Hinchcliffe gets around Charlie Kimball. Dan Clark looks to the inside of Gustavo Jacoman, can't get him. It's J.K. Vernet and Hinchcliffe already out of 3.
So we keep our eye on J.K. Vernet, the championship leader, as he is out in front as the cars will now make the right-hander through turn number 4. And as they exit turn number 4, good racing in the back of the pack. But Jake Query, they'll now head to, for the first time here this afternoon of the 40 laps that make up this event, they'll head to the carousel.
He starts to go down that carousel. Now Gustavo Jacoman looks to the inside of Dan Clark as they make their way down out of the carousel, and the leaders are already in front of Mark James.
J.K. Vernet leads the way. Keep in mind, over the past couple of races, as we see Dan Clark trying to pick up a spot through turn 7A, running side by side with Sebastian Saavedra. The last 3 races, Mike, the pole sitter has led wire to wire.
James Hinchcliffe now running second. Charlie Kimball behind him running in 3rd place. Hinchcliffe trying to make up for that bad decision, the mistake he made 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio when he cost himself a sure podium finish and instead wound up off the track and had to settle for 7th. So as they come off the hairpin for the first time, we'll complete the first of 40 laps here at Infineon Raceway. Beautiful sunny day in the Sonoma Valley. It is Vernet leading Hinchcliffe by about 5 car lengths as they climb the hill towards Jake Query.
Distance stays the same, and James Hinchcliffe just a little bit squirrely as they come out of 1, and that allows Charlie Kimball to get right on his back wing. Now Hinchcliffe separates himself by about a car length from Charlie Kimball.
So we continue to watch that battle for 2nd place as Charlie Kimball trying to grab 2nd place back as they head to turn number 4, the right-hander. Then they'll make their way through another slight right-hander in turn number 5. And once again, Jake, they're in the carousel.
And J.K. Vernet separates himself by about 3 car lengths from James Hinchcliffe. Then another 2 car lengths before Charlie Kimball. Those 3 have really given themselves some distance. Then Gustavo Jacoman and Dan Clark. But J.K. Vernet starting to separate himself, Mark, from James Hinchcliffe.
Question is, can Hinchcliffe keep his focus and not make the kind of mistake that cost him an opportunity to get the win at Mid-Ohio? It's also cost him before when he's kind of pushed the panic button, if you will, and ended up flying off of course. J.K. Vernet right now in control as they head back into the chicane.
Yeah, the top 3 already through the S's. They'll accordion up there through the chicane for the 2nd time as now James Hinchcliffe right on the rear wing of the Sam Schmidt Motorsports number 7 Lucas Oil car as they head to the hairpin. Once again, this is turn number 11. Hinchcliffe trying to look to the inside. Will he have room as they come through turn number 12? No. Vernet will lead lap number 3 as they're across the line. So it's Vernet your leader. Hinchcliffe runs 2nd. Kimball is 3rd. Jacoman is 4th. Clark is 5th. They're back in front of Jake Query in 3.
And Hinchcliffe is trying to get up on J.K. Vernet, but the interesting thing, Charlie Kimball seems to be gaining on him through turn number 1, and then Hinchcliffe gives himself a little bit of breathing room as they come out of turn number 3 and then towards the straightaway.
Kevin Lee, we talked about it on the Peak Performance Fantasy Racing Show, the fact that J.K. Vernet need only do what he has practically done all season long, and that's avoid making any major mistakes, and this guy is going to win this year's championship. And we'll check back in with Kevin Lee in just a couple of minutes on pit lane. Meantime, we watch the leaders as they head towards you. Mark James in turn number 7.
Front 3 separating themselves a little bit from 4th place, Gustavo Jacoman. Dan Clark has a firm grasp on the 5th spot. Then it's the 6th machine, the 29 car, 6th place machine, the 29 car of Sebastian Saavedra. Then the 22 machine of Adrian Campos Jr. Mike, I look back in the pack. The guy we talked about, Martin Plowman, has picked up a couple of spots since the race began.
Yeah, let's keep in mind Martin Plowman with electrical problems yesterday really put him behind the 8 ball in his quest for this championship and trying to chase down Vernet, who has that healthy 53-point lead. Of course, Plowman 2 weeks ago winning his first IZOD Make It Firestone Indy Lights event as he led all 40 laps at Mid-Ohio. Across the line, 3 of 40 laps are going to be shown complete as we take a look at the race leaders. In fact, let's give you a full field rundown. J.K. Vernet is your leader. 53 hundredths of a second. That's what separates he in 2nd place, James Hinchcliffe. Charlie Kimball runs 3rd. Gustavo Jacoman is 4th, and Dan Clark runs 5th. Sebastian Saavedra is 6th. Adrian Campos Jr. runs 7th. And Pippa Mann, who missed the race 2 weeks ago because of the injured left hand in Mid-Ohio, she is currently running 8th. And you've got Ellis and Major rounding out the top 10. Plowman's currently shown in 11th place. 12th to Garcia. Martinez is 13th. Miller is 14th. Villarino is 15th. Barbosa runs 16th as the leaders. Exit the carousel. Mark James, they head to you in 7th.
Still no change among the front three. Hinchcliffe has faded just a bit, although his breaking points seem to be a little later. He can't get up on Vernet because JK gets off the turns a little quicker. Best battle right now is that battle for 5th. It's a nose-to-tail one. The 40 machine of Dan Clark and the 29 machine of Sebastian Saavedra as they snake their way through the S's.
Well, J.K. Vernet had a great start, but as Jake Query alluded to a bit earlier, these guys are not shaking each other. Top three still right in each other's mirrors as J.K. Vernet working on about a 7, maybe 8 car length lead as they head to the hairpin in turn number 11. As they'll make the turn, Hinchcliffe pulls right up on the rear wing. Charlie Kimball does the same thing to the second place car of Hinch. Across the line, though, and as they get on the gas, Jake Query, it looks like that J.K. Vernet really accelerating well and straight line speed. It looks like he's got it right now.
Boy, especially coming up here as he elevates and finds his way through turn number 2. He really does so smoothly. James Hinchcliffe, Mark James, you had touched on the fact that Hinchcliffe seems to be braking a little bit later going into the turns. I think that's applicable in turn number 1 as well, because he seems to be smoking them up a little bit and getting squirrely. That's allowing Vernet to put some distance between himself and as well James Hinchcliffe, as now J.K. Vernet works his way down through the carousel, and that distance between J.K. Vernet and then James Hinchcliffe, that second place machine, is about 4 car lengths as they hit into your view, Mark.
Vernet has led a ton of laps this season. That's indicative of the fact that he leads the championship, and one of the best ways to not have to worry about what your opponents are going to do in terms of pulling up on you is to get out front and stay out front. Mike, J.K. Vernet taking care of business through the first 7 or 8 laps here at Infineon today.
Yeah, nice crowd continues to file in here in anticipation of today's feature event, the IZOD IndyCar Series Grand Prix of Sonoma, which comes up this afternoon, as we'll be joining you at 5 o'clock Eastern Time on the IMS Radio Network, 2 o'clock local time here in Sonoma, California. Once again, J.K. Vernet, no doubt about it, it looks like he might be carrying less downforce. He is much quicker in a straight line, but boy, James Hinchcliffe and Charlie Kimball both able to pull right up on the rear wing of the number 7 Lucas Oil car. The only problem here, Jake Query, is you're going to have to be a lot quicker than Vernet on that braking point and going into those corners in order to make that pass, because right now Vernet is able to get off the corners, it looks like, much quicker.
Yeah, everything that James Hinchcliffe and then as well Charlie Kimball are doing to try to make up some ground on J.K. Vernet, J.K. Vernet has an answer for. And Gustavo Yakiman at this point has got to start to feel pretty lonely, because in 4th position, he finds himself a good 15 to 20 car lengths behind Charlie Kimball. That front trio has completely checked out. J.K. Vernet, then the yellow machine of James Hinchcliffe, and then that white, orange, and green machine of Charlie Kimball.
Turns 3 through 6 were not kind to Charlie Kimball. He lost a couple of car lengths. He's able to gather it back up in 7A, but that battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th, while it's ways behind the front 3, continues to be a good battle. That's the one with Gustavo Yakiman being the head of the train. Martin Plowman now working on the 49 machine of Philip Major, looking to pick up another spot now as they slide back down the hill toward the S's.
Leaders off of the chicane. Behind him, we see Gustavo Yakiman trying to hold off Dan Clark and Sebastian Saavedra. That is the battle for 4th place behind the leaders as they are already in the hairpin. Turn 11. Now they'll make their way through the little bender, which is turn 12. Across the line, we will complete 6 of 40 laps here, and J.K. Vernet, our pole sitter, back out in front. And Jake Query, it was odd to see him struggle the way he did at Mid-Ohio, but it looks like J.K. has regained his form.
Yeah, he's making up for it today, because he finds himself about 6 car lengths in front of James Hinchcliffe. Then Charlie Kimball still trying to beat and bang on that number 2 machine, but they've got a little bit to go here if they want to catch up to that 7 Lucas Oil machine. Oh, a spin here in turn number 1, by the way, a spin, and it's Philip Major, and in doing so, he collects the number 27 machine of Martin Plowman. So Philip Major got loose coming out of turn number 1, and in doing so, he went back into the front end of Martin Plowman, and Martin Plowman is not able to maintain as he sits now and waits, and he's going to need some help getting out. Martin Plowman, and that brings out a full course caution.
Boy, Mark James, what a difference 2 weeks can make in racing, and of course it was the ecstasy for Martin Plowman 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio as he started on pole and literally aced the weekend. He led all 40 laps, wound up in victory lane for the first time in Firestone Indy Lights, but came here, had the electrical problem yesterday during qualifying, started behind the 8 ball because he was buried in the back of the pack, and we watched him as he came past us, completing 6 laps, as he was working on Philip Major, trying to get past for that 10th position. But Mark, the ecstasy and the agony of racing, he's feeling the agony right now.
Well, we asked him that yesterday after qualifying with the struggles that he had, starting no better than 14th today in the 16-car field, and that's exactly what he said, what you just alluded to, Mike. He said, that's racing. Some weekends everything falls your way, and some weekends it doesn't. Certainly, this is one of those weekends in which it did not, and any opportunity that he had with just 3 races remaining on the schedule to win the championship may have just evaporated at the top of the hill here out of the straightaway at Infineon for Martin Plowman.
Yeah, I think you can pretty much say that his quest for the championship has come to an end. He had to get to the front. He knew that, and perhaps Nick Yeoman's going to have an opportunity to catch up with Gary Peterson, the owner of the AFS machine there, who he pairs with Andretti Autosport in fielding that car, and going to be disappointing for sure after Gary was celebrating a championship last year for the 2nd consecutive year in Firestone Indy Lights, but it does look like the day is done and the championship hunt has come to an end for Martin Plowman. Meantime, the 49 machine of Philip Major also, as we said, involved in that incident, back to his pit stall, and the crew will look him over as Philip Major is in. Samsonite Motorsports team will take a look at all 4 corners. Looks like they're getting ready to send him back out. I don't know, Jake Query, if he really incurred any damage on that car. It looks like the car's in pretty good shape. We're going to see if they're going to send him out, and they will. So Philip Major will continue on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, he got loose coming out of turn number 1 and essentially was fishtailing as he started to make that right-hander into turn number 2. I think he just got on the throttle too hot without having the car completely under his control, as Philip Major now goes by me to try to catch back up to the back of the field. But when he did so, coming out of 2 is when he actually did the full swing. That collected Martin Plowman. Martin Plowman did get out of his machine just fine. He, in a very classy move, patted on the back each of the Homatro safety crew members that got there so quickly. Then a big hearty wave to the crowd. They all saluted Martin Plowman as he now makes that long, lonely ride along with the safety crew back towards pit road.
Plow is a great guy. He really is a class individual from Tamworth, England, and really enjoyed celebrating that victory. His parents were over from England for that race, as they are each and every time he is in the car. It was the first time in some 5 years that he had been to victory lane. In fact, it was the first time since his karting career came to an end that he had celebrated on the top step of the podium. But today, on the other hand, his parents will be there to console him after what was a very difficult weekend here at Infineon Raceway. Mike King, Mark Janes, Jake Query, Nick Yeoman, and Kevin Lee bringing you all the action here on IndyCar.com of the 10th race on the 2010 Firestone Indy Light Series schedule. It is the Carneros 100. Wish you were here with us as we are looking out over the Sonoma Valley and a couple of vineyards that play out here just in front of us. This is wine country in California, and boy, what a beautiful setting it is for this gorgeous stadium setting of a road course, where there are many places, Mark, where we mentioned it earlier, where if you buy a ticket to come to this track, you're probably going to see a good 75-80% of this road course, and they've done a great job at SMI turning this into a very fan-friendly facility.
Yeah, each year that we've been out here in the Turn 7A complex, Mike, this area has been packed with hospitality, and the good folks at Target have set up here in this corner this year, and they are unloading motor coaches full of hardy fans who are excited to be here, and they'll be able to enjoy some great food and drink and refreshment, and they'll see easily about 90% of this course. But the view from here with the mountain ranges and whatnot and the wineries, as you suggest, is just a spectacular one. It's obviously a very different setting from what we enjoy at Mid-Ohio and Watkins Glen and the fabulous Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama that we visited for the first time this year. All of those provide spectacular settings and spectacular views, but you know, it's not only just the fact that we're in the heart of the Napa Valley. One of the luxuries that we have in being able to do this some of the opportunities we have to become tourists and do a little sightseeing. And of course, we're in the shadows of the great city of San Francisco and all that it has to offer. And I would suggest to race fans in the not too distant future that if you're looking for a venue outside of the Midwest to come and visit, and you want to spend a couple of days on each side of an event and have a lot of things to see and do, I would think that this racetrack would be one to circle on your calendar for 2011.
Absolutely. We paid a visit to San Francisco on Friday evening, grabbing a ferry ride over from Larkspur Landing, and my gosh, that ride in itself is worth the trip, as you are able to see so many iconic sights in this country, some of them good, some of them not so good. When you sail past a place like San Quentin or perhaps Alcatraz, maybe not the greatest memories, but they are iconic locations in this country, no doubt about it. But that's balanced out by the beauty of the Golden Gate Bridge. And interesting to note, we had a gentleman that was on the ferry with us, telling us about a $300 million yacht that was owned by a Russian billionaire that had docked in the San Francisco Bay, and he said it was just spectacular. But that's the sort of thing you see when you come out here. Nick Yeoman, you've got a guy who's wrapped up a tough weekend. Martin Plowman, the winner at Mid-Ohio, will finish last, unfortunately, here today at Infineon.
That's right, Mike. Racing can be awfully cruel. Such the ecstasy of winning at Mid-Ohio. A tough weekend, Martin. What happened? Looks like you just got caught up in Philip's accident.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. You know, obviously Philip didn't take me out on purpose. We started at the back, obviously, with a technical problem in qualifying, which put me down there. And this is what happens in racing. When you start at the back, you start out of position, you have to take these risks. And I'm honestly really upset for the guys because, I've got one of the most amazing teams around me. They stay up till 10 or 11 o'clock this night to fix the car, and they finally figured out what was wrong with the electrical system. And made some change this morning to get a good race car so we could pass, and the car was on fire. I mean, I was having a few laps to get past Philip, but I felt we could have done it. But that's motorsport. So what can I say? I'm sorry for the guys because they deserved a top 5 today, and this car had definitely had it.
That's Martin Plowman. Mike, this is one of those weekends you just want to forget.
Absolutely, and we'll see Martin Plowman at the final 3 events on the 2010 Firestone Indy Light schedule starting next weekend at Chicagoland. So ovals, that will be the final 3 appearances for these guys this weekend, as the IndyCar series will have 4 oval events remaining. This is the final road course event of 2010, as now the Honda safety vehicle will accelerate past the field as we will complete 10 of 40 at the line. 30 laps will remain. The leader, J.K. Vernet, will take control of the field as they will head to the long course for the restart. So here they come. They will move just past turn 11, and now, as we mentioned, go to the long course. That way, all of the cars in the field will have an opportunity to be on the straightaway when the green flag comes back out in the flag stand. Green flag will wave. 10 laps will be complete. J.K. Vernet being hunted now by the driver who is second in championship points, James Hinchcliffe. Charlie Kimball is third. Jake Query there in front of you.
Good battle going on as well for 4th as Dan Clark looks to get past Gustavo Yakiman. Yakiman holds him off. Vernet with about a 3-car length lead. Didn't get quite the jump he did at the start of the race, but still comfortably in first.
Sebastian Saavedra, it looks like, also wants to get in on that battle between Dan Clark and Gustavo Yakiman as the leaders now head to the carousel. Jake?
And we will watch J.K. Vernet now make that long left-handed downward spiral. As he does so, he gets a little bit of breathing room from James Hinchcliffe. Sebastian Saavedra, like you mentioned, right there taking a look on Dan Clark. Clark about 3-car lengths behind right now as Sebastian Saavedra moves in on him, and that's a good battle going on towards that battle for 4th.
Battle for 5th, and they tangle in turn 7A, and Dan Clark's getting punted by Sebastian Saavedra. Clark spins to a stop to the high side. Cars going side by side in the rear of the field. That's Major and the 18 machine of Barboza. Clark is back underway, but he's in the rear of the field, Mike.
Mark, you could see it coming as they came past on the restart. Now Gustavo Yakiman, who is running in 4th place. He is going to try to pull up on the rear wing of Charlie Kimball, but does not accelerate off of the chicane the way the top 3 cars do. J.K. Vernet, he'll complete 11 of 40 laps as the leader from the point as he was on pole here. Behind him in his mirrors, the yellow and white machine of James Hinchcliffe. Then you've got Charlie Kimball, the 26 car, that Levemere machine. Then Yakiman, then Adrian Campos Jr. They're back in front of Jake Query in 2.
And Vernet goes by. There's Hinchcliffe and Charlie Kimball right on Hinchcliffe's heels. Then about 6 car lengths to Gustavo Yakiman. Somebody lost power coming out of that move involving Dan Clark, and I think it's Sebastian Saavedra who limped his way around towards pit road. So Sebastian Saavedra, who was involved in some beating and banging as well, fell victim to that incident with Dan Clark.
Wow, so a lot of the guys involved in the championship. Of course, Sebastian Saavedra came in today 90 points behind J.K. Vernet. We've already talked about Plowman's woes, but the leaders already head back to Mark Janes in turn number 7.
James Hinchcliffe losing ground to the leader, J.K. Vernet, with plenty of company from Charlie Kimball. That is about a 6 car lengths deficit back to the number 10 machine of Gustavo Jacob and then Adrian Campos Jr. Pippa Mann back in the cockpit after joining us in the booth with that wrist injury. She was our analyst at Mid-Ohio. Great job by Pippa. While we enjoyed her being in the booth, I'm sure she's happy to be back in the race car, Mike.
Absolutely, and I tell you what, Charlie Kimball right now really working on James Hinchcliffe. And Mark, as I was watching Kimball, it looks like he is dramatically faster than the Hinchcliffe car as they make their way down through the S's, as Charlie pulled right up on the rear wing, but he just didn't have a spot to be able to make the pass.
Looking at the technical portions of the courses, Charlie Kimball, his car seems to be handling a bit better there. Hinchcliffe's able to pull away, as you said, as they come off the turn. The leader's back in front of Jake Query.
Does have that breathing room, and Charlie Kimball is right there. Wherever Hinchcliffe goes, there's that 26 machine, that green nose with orange trim, and he is right on the heels of James Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, Hinchcliffe is going to have his hands full just trying to hold off Charlie Kimball, much less trying to catch up with J.K. Vernet as Hinch comes in 53 points behind Vernet. And, you know, Mark, I'm betting with every lap he turns, he's asking himself, why didn't I settle for a second-place finish at Mid-Ohio 2 weeks ago, because this championship could be looking very, very different.
Well, you always want to take notes on your opponent, and Mike, you got to think in the back of Charlie Kimball's mind, he's got to be thinking, okay, I've got a history in front of me here of a guy who, when under pressure, has a tendency to make some bobbles. So if Charlie Kimball keeps a decent amount of pressure applied, then dials it up a little bit toward the end, maybe he can force Hinchcliffe into a mistake and grab that second spot and maybe set sail for Vernet, who's currently making his way through that chicane.
Charlie Kimball started the day 4th in Firestone Indy Lights standings, 74 points behind J.K. Vernet, and Charlie Kimball would really love to be on the podium here. This is home to him. He's a California kid, and Charlie Kimball in that AFS Andretti Autosport Levemir-sponsored car would love to put the team on the podium here today in California's wine country. Back to pit lane and Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, problems for Sebastian Saavedra. Jake Query touched on how he lost power. That bent toe link in the front left tire has put Saavedra out of the race. We'll try to catch up with him here in a few minutes.
Wow, so Sebastian Saavedra, who last year, of course, was a major part of the championship, he and his teammate at the time, J.R. Hildebrand, he is done for the day, and unfortunately for Sebastian, his hopes of pursuing J.K. Vernet for the championship will also go away here today as well. He came in 5th. He was 90 points behind Vernet in the championship standings. Jake Query's car is heading back to the carousel as we're showing 13 of 40 laps complete.
And I'm keeping an eye on Gustavo Jacob. He was really squirrely coming out of turn number 2 and as well all the way into turn number 3. Gustavo Jacob holding on for dear life on that number 10 machine, Mark.
Pretty good battle for the 6th spot, making their way through turn 7A right now. It's the 77 machine and the number 11 machine. We talked about Pippa Mann before. She's trying to hold on to that position now as they snake their way through the S's.
Well, Charlie Kimball once again will pull right up on the rear wing of that yellow and white number 2 Team TMR machine, but he just can't seem to hang on, as it looks like Hinchcliffe is simply able to accelerate away. Much the same story that we have with the number 7 Sam Schmidt Lucas Oil machine of J.K. Vernet. Vernet does not seem to be as good on the technical portions, but Jake Query, he is able to set sail when he is able to go full throttle.
And when he is going up that uphill climb between 1 and 2, it's where he really finds himself some distance. Then James Hinchcliffe tries before they get into 3 to narrow it, but J.K. Vernet, just a very smooth line right now.
Well, Vernet out in front. James Hinchcliffe runs second as we're showing 14 of 40 laps complete. So 26 laps remain. Charlie Kimball is 3rd. Gustavo Jacob is 4th. Adrian Campos Jr. is 5th. 6th place to Pippa Mann. Ellis is 7th. Garcia is 8th. Martinez is 9th. And Miller is 10th. Dan Clark, after the run-in up there in turn number 7, He has now dropped back all the way to 11th place. Villarino is 12th. Major is 13th. Barbosa is 14th. Saavedra is out of the race with a 15th place finish to his credit, and Plowman is out of this race as well, as he will be shown a 16th place finisher here today. Keeping our eye on Alex Ellis, who is running in 7th place. This guy is a good story, Kevin Lee, as Alex Ellis is here this weekend after winning the Russell School Challenge, the Race of Champions Challenge, and for doing that 6-race challenge, he winds up in the Jim Russell Racing Series Sam Schmidt Motorsports entry as he makes his Firestone Indy Lights debut this weekend.
And he not only had to win that championship, he also had to successfully complete a test at Putnam Park about a week and a half ago, so it wasn't fully set in stone that the winner was going to get a ride here in the Lights race, but he's done everything that you can ask for so far. I think a pretty good start so far for Alex Ellis. I don't know if it was mentioned, but I noticed on the video monitor it looked like part of the front wing might be flapping around, or maybe an end plate or something like that for Ellis. So we'll keep an eye on that car.
Well, I tell you what, Jake Query, we were watching the battle for second place, and James Hinchcliffe, as Mark James mentioned a couple of minutes ago, prone to mistakes when he is being pressured, and Charlie Kimball is right on the rear wing, and we saw Hinch go off track.
And as you watch, James Hinchcliffe has Charlie Kimball about 3 car lengths behind, and Charlie Kimball now is really closing in, Mark.
Trying to hold him off. Kimball looking for some room, but this track only about 40 feet wide at his widest point. They can't seem to work his way around it. Still watching that battle for 6th, which is a good one between Pippa Mann and Alex Ellis. Meanwhile, that battle for 2nd continues. Charlie Kimball to the inside.
Yeah, and he's going to make the pass in the chicane. Boy, what a nice move there by Charlie Kimball as he slides to the inside of James Hinchcliffe, and he will pick up 2nd place. And I tell you what, Mark, you don't see many clean passes through there, but Charlie Kimball did a great job of setting him up there through the 910 chicane.
Considering all the uncertainty and the problems that cars in both series have had in that particular portion of the race course, Mike, that was an awfully good piece of driving on the part of Charlie Kimball. But again, it's a track he's familiar with, and he wants to dial it up in front of the hometown folks, no doubt about that.
So Charlie Kimball now will try to I guess put J.K. Bernay in his crosshairs. He's going to have himself quite a battle as Charlie Kimball finds himself 2.6 seconds behind the Lucas Oil Sam Schmidt Motorsports machine. Meantime, as we told you, Sebastian Saavedra out of this one. Unfortunately, a problem for his Brian Herta Autosport William Rass machine. Nick Yeoman, you've caught up with Sebastian.
Yeah, we saw contact there with Dan Clark. Sebastian, what put you out of the race?
It's very disappointing, you know. We had a great car for the race. We were doing a great job just saving tires towards the end. Incredible run out of turn 6 into the back stretch to Clark. Again, I passed him at the same time. But he's not going for the championship, so he really doesn't care what he does. And there was contact which damaged my race. Took me very important points for me. And it's just very disappointing for us.
Being that it's so hard to pass at a place like Sonoma, were you just trying to be a little extra aggressive?
Not at all. I was already by his side. I was already turning in. I touched with his front wing. So if I had touched with something else, but it was his front wing. So it's something that we were not hoping for. As I say, we were just looking for the points. But this motorsport, this is what happens, and just bring it on.
That's Sebastian Saavedra. Mike, a tough day here for the William Rass Group.
Well, it would have appeared a couple of laps earlier that J.K. Bernay was going to pull away from the rest of the field and perhaps win this one easily, Mark James. But we have seen Charlie Kimball make the pass to get around James Hinchcliffe and take over 2nd place. And on that previous lap, Mark, he made up nearly 0.3 of a second on J.K. Bernay. I'm not sure this one is over. So with still 23, make it 22 and a half laps remaining, Mark, we may wind up seeing a pretty good battle between Kimball and Bernay.
Well, let's reach into the cliche cabinet and pull one of the most tried and true out. Catching him is one thing, passing him is another, especially here at Sonoma. Although we did see Charlie make a pass at a very difficult part of the racetrack to grab that spot, that 2nd spot away. J.K. Bernay battling for a championship, and Mike, to be honest with you, as long as he's in front of the guys that are chasing him, I don't know that he would be interested in getting into a slugfest with Charlie Kimball and risk giving up the opportunity to pile on some points today.
Now, J.K. Bernay has been oh so good this year. He won in his debut in the series at St. Petersburg, then followed that up by winning at Barber Motorsports Park. Then J.K. Bernay, I don't want to say he took any time off because he was in all the other events, but he didn't see victory lane again until 4 races later at Watkins Glen. He followed that up with a back-to-backer as he won again at Toronto, and looking Jake Query for win number 5 of the season here this weekend at Infineon.
And that front 5 or 6 have pretty much just settled down into a single file, but Charlie Kimball trying to work his way in on J.K. Bernay as they move their way in towards the carousel. Remember yesterday, Charlie Kimball, after qualifying, he got that second position at the very end of the qualifying session and said, there's still some more left in this race car, and he's trying to find that speed now as we work our way towards the halfway point, Mark Janes. Charlie Kimball trying to close that gap on J.K.
Doesn't look like he's able to do it by much. J.K. sees the rear end of the car dance out a little bit as he climbs on the binders and reaches turn 7A. Really tiptoeing through here is Kimball. There's Hinchcliffe. There's Gustavo Yakim, and then Adrian Campos. That battle between Alex Ellis and Pippa Mann continues to be the best one on the racetrack. They make their way back down the hill now as they exit turn 7A.
We'll complete 19 of 40 laps this time by the start-finish line here just below us on the front straight. You know, Kevin Lee, the one thing that surprises me a bit is I really thought we might see Joel Miller make a run through the field, at least make his way into the top 10 a little earlier than this. Miller had the engine change, which forced him to the back of the grid, but he was second quick in the final practice session behind only J.K. Bernay, but right now he's stuck in 11th and just can't make any forward progress.
I think that's an indication of how difficult it is to overtake here. And then also, if you look at it from his perspective, yes, he really wants to have a good showing and prove that he can get by people, but he doesn't want to tear up anybody's equipment too. He's on a single race effort. He'd like to get another one. One of the best ways to get that done is make sure you bring the car home in one piece.
Yeah, and Joel Miller, by the way, making his second start in Firestone Indy Lights this weekend, filling in for Stephen Wilson as he is in the Brian Herta Autosport car, number 28. Mark James, as the leaders head to you.
Turn 3A, Gustavo Yakim got wide just when he left the view of Jake Query and kicked up all kinds of dust. He ran over the curbing and got in the dirt and the grass for about 75 to 100 feet or so. He's back underway, but certainly the advantage that he enjoyed over the 22 machine of Adrian Campos Jr. has disappeared. Meanwhile, Alex Ellis pushed a little too hard in 7A that time, Mike. He lost valuable space in that battle he's been engaged in with Pippa Mann for the last 5 or 6 laps or so.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Mark, the same spot that Yakiman had the problem there in 3A, that was the exact same spot that James Hinchcliffe had the problem when he was being pressured by Charlie Kimball. So it looks like if you're going to overstep it just a bit, 3A is the spot where we have the tendency to drop those left sides into the dirt. As Jake Query, J.K. Bernay in front of you with 20 of 40 laps complete.
And that distance now, about 15, maybe 17 car lengths. Charlie Kimball starts to look like he's going to accelerate and kind of jump into that gap as he comes out of turn number 2. But at that point, J.K. Bernay is already on the straightaway into 3A, and that's where he's kind of keeping that distance right now on that machine of Charlie Kimball.
Yeah, J.K. Bernay is so very smooth, and Kevin Lee, to revisit the point we were talking about a little bit earlier, the fact that J.K. Bernay seems to be so solid when it comes to his decision-making on track. The guy just doesn't make mistakes, and he seems to be able to accept the fact that he's going to only take what the car will give him. He doesn't try to overdrive what he's been given in terms of an opportunity.
And that's why, as much as I'd like to promote the fact that this championship is going to go down to the wire, I just think it's very unlikely because J.K. Bernay has not made a mistake all season. We have the 77 car of Alex Ellis stalled on course now, and we have a local yellow. Jake, can you see him?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what happened. Just as he came out of turn number 3, he got loose. He came to a stop and then started rolling back, and at that point moved into my view. Mark Janes, I'm not sure if you saw him just as he came out of my view. He has just come back into it, but I'm not sure what led to the situation that we find now.
He's just about to the entrance of turn 3A, and that is where the Hamatro safety crew has come to a stop, and they're pouring over the car right now, and the caution is out here at Infineon. We're just past the halfway point in the Carneros 100.
I don't know, Mark, if you or Jake have ever seen the show on the History Channel, Ice Road Truckers. Have you ever?
Yeah.
You've seen it? Well, you know when those guys are trying to climb one of those ice-covered roads on one of the big inclines, and all of a sudden they come to a stop and lose traction, and the rig starts going backwards? That's what it looked like there with that car. It looked like he was climbing towards the top, of 3A to crest what is a blind corner, and the car came to a stop, and then, Jake, as you mentioned, all of a sudden we just saw him backing up. It looked like the car was just moving backwards, but thankfully the car has come to a stop, and the whole Matro safety crew is there. So as we are under full course caution for the second time this afternoon, unfortunate for Alex Ellis, as we mentioned, the rookie, the winner of the Jim Russell Racing Series, and he was here with Sam Schmidt Motorsports, making his first appearance in Firestone Indy Lights, and was doing a good job, was running solidly in the top 10. He is a young man from St. Catharines in Canada, and we want to say welcome to him and congratulations on winning the Jim Russell Racing Series Challenge, and we hope to see him again real soon in the Firestone Indy Lights Series. Let's do a full field reset for you now as we will complete 22 laps at the line under caution. So the full course as the safety crew is there to hook up the 77 car and tow him back to pit lane. J.K. Vernay has led all 21 laps from pole. He has been very strong. As we mentioned, he is the championship points leader, and of course he is looking for his 5th win of the season. Charlie Kimball made a very nice move to go to second place on James Hinchcliffe as he was pressuring Hinch on the turn 2, 3, 4 portion of the track. Hinch just made a little mistake, got the left sides off onto the dirt, and about 4 turns later it was James Hinchcliffe giving up the position to Charlie Kimball in the chicane, turn number 9. So Kimball currently runs second. Hinchcliffe has dropped to third. Gustavo Yakiman is fourth. Adrian Campos is shown in 5th place. Pippa Mann is 6th. Dan Clark is 7th. We've got Garcia, Martinez, and Miller rounding out the top 10. Villarino is 11th. Major is 12th. Barbosa 13th. Ellis is 14th. Whether or not they'll be able to restart that 77 car, I'm not sure, but he is right now shown in 14th place. And Sebastian Saavedra and Martin Plowman are both out, as they will be credited with 15th and 16th place, respectively. Attention, you Indy Downforce and IndyCar Nation members. Your code word for the Firestone Indy Lights race from Infineon, the Carneros 100, is wine. And that's W-I-N-E, not W-H-I. W-I-N-E, wine, the fruit of the vine. Please go to your IndyCar Nation homepage, click on the Earn Points section, then enter the secret word under the radio portion. You're going to receive 400 points. Again, your code word is, appropriately enough, wine. And thanks for listening to us here on IndyCar.com. Back to pit lane and Kevin Lynn.
J.K. Vernay was just reminded about the blocking rules. The right side is only for overtaking that we saw come into Edmonton, and he was reminded that the cars behind him have less downforce than he does, so they might be able to get a run up on him on these main straightaways. James Hinchcliffe has been dealing with some handling issues throughout. He's been talking about the rear of the car, not where he wants it to be.
We were watching Vernay early on, and it looked like that car was so slick through the straightaway portions. I figured Vernay might have been running with less downforce. So, Kevin, they're telling him that both Kimball and Hinchcliffe are running less downforce than he is?
Exactly. That's the word, that he's running high downforce. He's pretty quick, I think, wherever he is on the course at this point.
Yep, absolutely. So we take a look, and as we mentioned, this is race number 10 on the 2010 schedule. 3 races remain following this one: Chicago, Kentucky, and Homestead Miami Speedway. And as we mentioned, Vernay, with 4 wins this season, he's been the class of the field. This is going to be a key restart as the Lucas Oil machine is out in front. We will complete 23 laps at the line. Charlie Kimball runs in second place. Third place belongs to James Hinchcliffe, Gustavo Yakiman. All of them now stack up behind the leader, Vernay, as the safety car rolls to a stop. They'll go back to the long course as we get ready to restart for the 3rd time this afternoon, completing our second full course caution. Here they come: J.K. Vernay, Charlie Kimball, James Hinchcliffe, Gustavo Yakiman. They will complete 23 of 40 laps, so 17 laps will remain at the line. A key restart. Vernay is out in front by about 2 car lengths, Jake Query, as they make the left-hander through 1, and they'll climb the hill towards you in 2.
With each restart, J.K. Vernay has a little less room to work with behind him. This time it's Charlie Kimball, who is right behind him. And when I say right, I mean a car length. Charlie Kimball right on J.K. Vernay.
A great restart for Charlie Kimball as he refused to let Vernay get away. As Jake Query, they'll now head to the carousel.
And Charlie Kimball, as you said, was right there on that restart. J.K. Vernay on the first restart after the beginning of this race had James Hinchcliffe on his heels. Now it is Charlie Kimball, those two 8 car lengths ahead of that third-place machine of James Hinchcliffe, but a little bit of separation. J.K. Bernay 4 car lengths in front of Charlie Kimball.
77 machine of Alex Ellis is back underway, but he is well off the pace. The front two have separated themselves a bit. Hinchcliffe and his teammate Campos Jr. have the 10 car of Gustavo Jacobin in a sandwich of sorts. The leaders making their way to the exit of the S's.
And Mark, I tell you what, the 77 car, as you mentioned, with Ellis aboard has restarted. I have a feeling that car is, okay, so they're bringing him back to pit lane, we're being told. I was afraid that he was going to figure into the lead here momentarily because the leaders were coming up on him so quickly. So it looks like they're going to put a new front nose and wing assembly on his car, as now we've got a great battle up in front. Charlie Kimball and J.K. Bernay, they'll complete 24:40 this time by. About 4 car lengths separate them across the start-finish line. Then about 10 car lengths behind Kimball, you've got Hinchcliffe, then Gustavo Jacobin, then Campos as they head to 2.
Wherever J.K. Bernay goes, there too is Charlie Kimball right on his heels. Distance about 2 car lengths, then about 8 car lengths back before James Hinchcliffe and Gustavo Jacobin. J.K. Bernay and Charlie Kimball doing battle up front.
Well, they'll crest that blind 3A. J.K. Bernay working on a 3-car length lead. The right-hander is going to set him up now as they head once again back to the carousel, Jake Query.
And J.K. Bernay, you touched on it earlier, Mike. He has perhaps a little bit of luxury that if this gets a little bit too close for comfort, he doesn't have to be as aggressive in battling with Charlie Kimball. But Charlie Kimball is not going to be that way at all. He's trying to catch up to that number 7 Lucas Oil machine.
About a 5-car length advantage as they climb on the binders and sweep their way around a right-handed turn. It's a pretty wide turn, some brake smoke in the back. Plenty of cars having some trouble, difficulty, I should say, negotiating this portion of the race course. Joel Miller in the 28 car among them. Now everyone gets themselves sorted out as the leader has a 3-car length advantage to the chicane.
Well, through the S's, Bernay cannot shake Kimball. So if, in fact, Bernay is running more downforce, as Kevin Lee told us, it would appear that he should be able to really negotiate through the S's, but Kimball is right there with him. So the fact that Kimball is carrying less downforce going to help him in the straightaway portions of the track. But right now, about 4 car lengths, that's all that separates first and second place. Charlie Kimball and Bernay, a good battle here up in front. Jake Query, they head to you in 2.
And Alex Ellis has found his way back onto the racetrack and done so about a quarter of a track or so in front of the rest. So they're not going to have that back marker traffic. Charlie Kimball's not going to have anybody that J.K. Bernay comes up on that's going to allow him possibly then to make the move. So for Charlie Kimball, it's all up to him right now to catch J.K. Bernay.
The right-hander through number 4 and then through 5 once again. Kimball working about 4 car lengths behind the leader, Bernay. They're back in the carousel.
And J.K. Bernay takes that sweeping left-hander, then Charlie Kimball about 4 car lengths back. And right now, single file as everybody goes through, and they're spaced out nearly every car, about 4 to 6 car lengths between each other, Mark.
The 7 machine continues to lead Charlie Kimball by about 4 car lengths, and then a little bit of breathing room back to Hinchcliffe. The 40 machine of Dan Clark is really working on Adrian Campos Jr. as they enter the S's.
Well, that time, as they made the run down through the S's, it was clear that Bernay was much quicker than Charlie Kimball as he made the approach, hit his braking zone, and he exited the chicane, and now is working on about a 7, maybe 8 car length lead. So that time, it appeared that certainly the setup on the car was much better. So we're just wondering now if perhaps Kevin Lee, Bernay not toying with Kimball just a little bit and not showing maybe as good as this car is, at least not yet, with 14 laps remaining.
I think he's got a hooked up car at this point. It's going to be very difficult for anybody to get by him. J.K. Bernay has shown all season long that he's got the makings of a champion.
So J.K. Bernay will continue to lead as we are showing 26 of 40 laps complete here at Infineon Raceway, the Carneros 100, race number 10 on the 2010 Firestone Indy Light schedule. Keep in mind this afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Pacific. We'll be joining you on the IMS Radio Network on IndyCar.com and, of course, on your favorite IMS Radio Network station, XM IndyCar 145 and Sirius 212 for live coverage of race number 13 on the 2010 IZOD IndyCar Series schedule. Leaders in front of Mark Janes in 7.
And no change among the leaders. If anything, they have distanced themselves a little bit from James Hinchcliffe. He's been able to get some breathing room of his own from Gustavo Jacobin. Jacobin trailing by about 10 car lengths now. The setup for the chicane, the leaders. It's a two-car race right now as they exit the chicane.
Well, Charlie Kimball, for sure, would love to find a way to get past Renee and wind up in victory lane in what is essentially his home track. We take a look at what Charlie Kimball has managed to do this season. Kimball has had some great runs. He was fourth at St. Pete. He was second at Barber. Followed that up with another second-place finish at Long Beach. Was second at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Then things got away from him just a little bit. A first-lap incident at the start in Iowa relegated him to a 13th-place finish. Problems at Watkins Glen, he was 11th. But then he found his groove again at Toronto, where he was fourth. He was fourth at Edmonton, back on the podium at Mid-Ohio last 2 weeks ago, where he was third. And now Charlie Kimball running in second place. But it is J.K. Vernay, the championship leader, who seems to have this one well in hand, with 27 of 40 being shown complete. Less than 13 laps remain for the Frenchman, who is marked trying to impress everyone, including an awful lot of IZOD IndyCar Series team owners. He wants to make the step up next year.
Chance to speak with him at length during the month of May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in preparation for the Freedom 100. Didn't have his best run of the year, certainly. Finished 13th in that race and kind of struggled throughout the month. And every time you talk to J.K. Vernay, Mike, he brought up the walls, and he really didn't bring it up at any of the other ovals, but just the magnitude of the Speedway, I think almost overwhelmed him a little bit. But Mike, following the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we thought he might bobble a little bit and cost himself a chance to win the championship, but boy, he has just been solid ever since.
Well, while Vernay is certainly good, Kimball is not letting him get away. In fact, as they exit turn number 11, Charlie Kimball is pulled back within about 4, maybe 5 car lengths. Across the line, 28 of 40 being shown complete. The gap, Jake Query, is 1 second as Kimball climbs the hill behind Vernay.
You know, it's on the other side of the racetrack. I can see it up in the horizon in the chicane where Charlie Kimball had made the pass of James Hinchcliffe, that he was able to get right on the heels of J.K. Vernay. But then by the time they come back around this part of the track, between 1 and 4 essentially, is where J.K. Vernay is starting to separate again.
You know, Mark, we talked yesterday during our broadcast of IZOD IndyCar Series qualifying about tire temps and optimum operating temperatures for these tires. And certainly a couple of laps earlier, about the third lap after the restart, it looked like Vernay was at his absolute best. Now beginning to drop off just a little bit, but you got to take into consideration the fact that these drivers essentially run a sprint race every time they're out there, don't have the luxury of coming in and making adjustments to the car or changing the tires during the course of the race. So whatever they've got to deal with.
As you speak, as the race progresses, the margin for error becomes even slighter because handling can go on the car for a number of reasons. Case in point, the 22 machine of Adrian Campos Jr., who was running in the top 6. He lost it in 7A and went off the course just a little bit, able to keep the car under power, but he slid back down the course. So, Mike, as this race starts to draw to a close within the final 10 laps or so, going to be interesting to see who's done the best job in terms of tire management and keeping plenty of grip in the race car as they make their way around this tricky course.
Well, the Sam Schmidt Motorsports operation is so solid. They are so good at managing their drivers and their cars on track. They, quite literally, Sam Schmidt has become the Roger Penske, if you will, of the Firestone Indy Light Series, despite the fact that Gary Peterson and Michael Andretti have made a lot of noise the last couple of years. Sam Schmidt continues to field so many great cars and find a lot of good drivers. Renee out in front. Charlie Kimball runs second. Hinchcliffe is third. Jacobin is fourth. And essentially, Jake Query, over the last couple of laps, the gap has remained almost identical, just over a second.
Indeed, that gap for the front 5. And we should note that Dan Clark, he was involved in a pretty good battle with Adrian Campos Jr. a few laps ago. Then as Mark had mentioned, Campos Jr. got off track, and by that point it was already well settled. So Dan Clark right now comfortably in 5th. But that leader is J.K. Vernay, that lead pack, J.K. Vernay and Charlie Kimball. They separate themselves by about 20 car lengths as they move into the chicane before James Hinchcliffe comes through.
Yep, and we watch the leaders now through the chicane as Charlie Kimball having to work very, very hard to try to catch up to that number 7 Lucas Oil machine. 30 laps will be complete at the stripe. So 30 of 40 will be in the book. J.K. Vernet has led this one from the drop of the green flag, and Vernet, the pole sitter, continues to look good for his 5th win of the season already through turn number 1. They'll make the climb. Back to you, Jake, in 2.
Little bit of smoke dust comes up for J.K. Vernet, but no problem. Charlie Kimball right behind him. Then you wait about, a second and a half before James Hinchcliffe comes through, but J.K. Vernet, no problems at all.
Yeah, and the 77 car of Alex Ellis has pulled off the track. Ellis, it looked like the car may have, in fact, just lost power as he pulled off in turn number 3. Wisely got it down there well off of the racetrack towards where the safety crew is parked, and the 77 car will now stay there until the end of this race. But Alex Ellis and his Firestone Indy Lights debut, Mark Janes, his day is done.
The leaders make their way through turn 7A. It's the 7 machine of J.K. Vernet and the 26 machine of Charlie Kimball. They have separated themselves from James Hinchcliffe. Gustavo Yakiman now has plenty of company in the 40 car of Dan Clark. They make their way off of 7A, set up for the S's. Yakiman starts to pull away a little bit, but you get the feeling that Dan Clark has a bead on that number 10 machine of Gustavo Yakiman.
Okay, guys, so as we get set to complete lap 31 of the 40 that make up today's Carneros 100, let's do a little prognosticating here. Let's say that J.K. Vernet winds up winning this race today and picks up win number 5, and then maybe wins another race or 2 before it's over with. He can come very close to tying that great season that Alex Lloyd had 3 years ago. Okay, that said, we all know what Alex Lloyd had to go through to get to the point where he is now to get a full-time ride. Mark Janes, is there a team out there in the IndyCar IndyCar Series paddock right now that may take a chance on the Frenchman J.K. Vernet for 2011? Is he going to be able, you think, to earn a ride, a full-time ride in the series based simply on his performance this year, as he believes?
Well, Mike, we were riding with our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton, this morning, and while certainly there's no guarantee that that could happen in 2011, save maybe at the last minute, J.K. Vernet's only opportunity would be another year in Firestone Indy Lights, and then maybe a one-off at the Speedway and a couple of other courses with a team that wants to run a second car. Certainly by 2012 or 2013, with the potential for the funding formula, if it comes to fruition in terms of what it will cost you to race in the IndyCar IndyCar Series, when you're talking chassis and engine lease program for the season, Mike, there may be teams that were once a part of this series that will come back and take a driver like J.K. Vernet, or current teams will be expanding and adding cars because it will be not cheap, but certainly much cheaper than it is now. That's when I think you'll see the floodgates start to open in terms of opportunities for these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. Not cheap, but more affordable is probably the best way to put it. And you've got to wonder, and Kevin, Mark hit on a couple of good points there. You know, we know, for example, that Gary Peterson, longtime team owner in Firestone Indy Lights, has been saying, I'm coming to the IndyCar Series as a team owner. Might we see Sam Schmidt make that jump, because he has been quite successful and a money-making team owner as one of the dominant teams here in Firestone Indy Lights for so many years?
A couple of months ago that he's starting to think hard about it again. They've moved into a larger shop now in Indianapolis, so that's a possibility. I certainly agree with what Mark said, that there are going to be more opportunities when we get to 2012 if the plan works as expected, with the engine leases significantly cheaper and the cost of racing cheaper, that more might want to get back in. But also think about this perspective for 2011. It's the last year that these cars are going to be used, so there's no reason to hang on to a car. You might see some teams that are willing to sell cars a little bit cheaper than they would be in the past. That might get some new entrants in. And I also know Randy Bernard is really working hard on trying to find the funding to reward the Firestone Indy Lights champion. That's not a done deal at this point, but it's something that he's openly talked about, that they're hopeful that there is some sort of a reward so that the Lights champ has some sort of financial backing to help him hook up with a team for IndyCar.
Well, as we watch Dan Clark, what a nice pass he made going into turn number 11, and then he gives the spot right back up to Yakiman. So it's almost, I guess in many ways, like a slide job on a dirt track, as we saw the driver look like Jake Query was going to make the pass, Clark for fourth, and then Gustavo Yakiman got him right back 10 feet later.
These two have been putting on a show for the last couple of circuits. Gustavo Yakiman in that number 10 machine, then right behind him that all-blue machine, number 40 of Dan Clark, as they work their way now Dan Clark is right there on Gustavo Jacquemin. As you said, they just changed positions. Gustavo Jacquemin got him back, but as they head back into the carousel, Dan Clark still continues to work on Gustavo Jacquemin. These two, as I said, the last 5 or 6 laps, it's been a battle. Gustavo Jacquemin has about a car length and a half advantage, Mark Janes, on Dan Clark.
Cars make their way through turn 7A. It's about a 1 car length differential as they climb up the hill. Then all of a sudden, that advantage evaporates. Gustavo Jacquemin pulls away, or tries to, but Dan Clark says not so fast. There's a shadow being cast by Gustavo Jacquemin, and it's in the 40 machine of Dan Clark.
Boy, they are really right on in each other's tire tracks at this point. Dan Clark, let's see if he's going to try it again. As Clark going to try to go to the outside, exiting the chicane. Unable to get there as Jacquemin holds on to 4th place. Let's see if Clark's going to try it again in the hairpin in 11. This is where he got him last time, but he couldn't hold the lead. He will not look to the inside. Gustavo Jacquemin is going to maintain 4th place as they come off 11 through 12. The battle for 4th place continues, but meantime, out in front, J.K. Vernay with 34 laps complete 2 laps earlier. Turned his quickest lap of the race. Charlie Kimball a lap earlier. His quickest lap of the race. The leaders are in front of Jake Query.
And that's a heck of a show going on back behind them. But yeah, we shouldn't lose focus on what's going on up front. And that is the exhibition being put on by J.K. Vernay, who now sweeps his way around that carousel. And that lead is comfortable. Charlie Kimball, those two have completely checked out on James Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, right now your top 10, it's J.K. Vernay working on a 1.8 second lead over Charlie Kimball, who runs second. James Hinchcliffe is third. Gustavo Jacquemin is fourth. Dan Clark is fifth. Then you've got Pippaman, Garcia, Campos Jr., Martinez, and Miller rounded out the top 10. Mark Janes in front of you.
They're coming back into the chicane now as they exit the S's, and a nice differential. Very comfortable margin for J.K. Vernay.
So J.K. Vernay now working on nearly a 2-second lead over Charlie Kimball, as both of these drivers recording their fastest laps of the race here in the final stage. The best battle on the racetrack right now, at least in the top 5, is for that 4th spot. Dan Clark once again trying to get to the inside of Jacquemin on the exit of the chicane. Can't make it work. So the blue car chasing the red, yellow, and blue machine of Jacquemin, the crepes and waffles car. So here they come. The battle for 4th place continues. Jacquemin runs about 2 car lengths in front of Dan Clark. They make the left-hander through turn number 1, and Jake Query, they climb the hill to U2.
To the naked eye, you would think that Dan Clark right now has the better race car than Gustavo Jacquemin, because every time they go into a turn, he is right there on his heels. The problem is Dan Clark just has not been able to find a good passing zone where he can get past that number 10 machine.
Well, Dan Clark has certainly been able to pull alongside Jacquemin, and once again, you know, just to give you an idea of that exchange 2 laps earlier down there in the hairpin in turn number 11, Jacquemin went to the inside, looked like, or rather he left the inside open. Dan Clark was able to dive to the inside, but as he moved alongside and looked like he'd made the pass, Jacquemin is then able to slide right back underneath, and then he was able to accelerate past and hold on to the position. So Gustavo Jacquemin remains in 4th place. Dan Clark then on the next lap tried it as he tried to look to the inside on the exit of the chicane, but just simply wasn't able to get it done. Now as they make their way down the S's back towards the chicane, let's see if Dan Clark will be able to close up once again his braking point. Looks like it's much later. He is right on the rear wing of Jacquemin as they exit the chicane. Now heading to turn number 10. Next stop for them is the hairpin, turn number 11. Dan Clark working hard behind Gustavo Jacquemin off the hairpin, now through the bender in number 12 across the line. 3 car lengths separate them. This is the battle for 4th place. Meantime, Vernay has opened up a 2.6 second lead, Jake Query, over Charlie Kimball.
Those front 3, Vernay, Kimball, and James Hinchcliffe, all 3 right now very safely and comfortably in their track position. No one around them. Then Gustavo Jacquemin, and he now puts a little bit of distance between himself and Dan Clark. That's been a heck of a battle, but at this point it looks like Jacquemin has a comfortable 3 to 4 car length advantage before Dan Clark gets to it.
Absolutely, and so it looks like Jacquemin doing a good job holding on to that position. Mark Janes, you got to wonder just how much Dan Clark has left in those Firestone Firehawks. He has really abused him trying to chase down that crepes and waffles car.
Last lap and a half, basically since the exchange, Mike. I don't know, maybe that woke Gustavo Jacquemin up a little bit, caused him to sit up in the seats up, because he has stretched that advantage out a bit more comfortably. Now there's no question once they leave 7A, make their way through the S's and then the chicane, appears as though that's where Clark can make up some ground, but certainly no question the rest of the portion of the courses, it's all Gustavo Jacobin.
J.K. Bernay, his worst finish of the season came at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where we all agreed that he was a little bit intimidated by what that place held in store for him, and he never looked very comfortable. He wound up 13th. Other than that, the 8th place finish a couple of weeks ago, well, you take those two races out of the 10 that so far have made up the championship schedule for Firestone Indy Lights, and this guy has been practically unbeatable. Right now, he is working on a 3-second lead over Charlie Kimball. James Hinchcliffe finds himself 8.4 seconds behind Bernay. Jacobin and Dan Clark continue to battle. That was the battle for 4th place. Then you've got Pippaman, who runs 6th, Garcia is 7th, Campos Jr. is 8th, Martinez is 9th, Miller is 10th. As Mark Janes, I tell you what, J.K. Bernay trying to make a name for himself, and he is now less than 2.5 laps away from winning for the 5th time this season.
And we've been through this road and street portion of the schedule, Mike. We'll go to ovals from here, and on the last 3 events, this would be the 4th consecutive race, Mike, that the pole sitter has led from start to finish. J.K. Bernay making a strong bid to, again, make that 4 races in a row.
Yeah, quick update from pit lane and Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, it appears Dan Clark definitely down on power. He's getting passed by quite a few guys, Mike, so a strong run challenging Gustavo Jacobin there for a top 4 spot. It looks like it's going to run short.
Yep, so Dan Clark, who challenged for several laps Gustavo Jacobin for 4th place on track, has now dropped well off the pace. An unfortunate end for Dan Clark as Mark Janes, Dan Clark has now pulled off track.
He went through 7A under power, and he cut to the inside, which is actually turn number 7. 7A is actually an extension of turn number 7. Once the traffic cleared, he pulled to the inside into the grass, and the car came to a stop.
So he was ordered by race control to pull off the track as he had lost so much speed. And J.K. Bernay right now with 38 laps being shown complete. Charlie Kimball runs 2nd. James Hinchcliffe is 3rd. Bernay just continues to open it up here in the final 5 or 6 laps of this race as his lead has grown, Mark, to 3.5 seconds over Charlie Kimball.
Helplessly, Dan Clark steps out of his race car and sees the leader go by him. There goes J.K. Bernay. There goes Charlie Kimball. Then you count several seconds back to the number 2 machine of James Hinchcliffe. Then it's Gustavo Jacobin. Jacobin will drive by Dan Clark as Clark sits helplessly on the wall. Jacobin cruises by, but J.K. Bernay on his way to a win here at Infineon.
And Charlie Kimball at this point has resigned himself to the fact that he is going to finish 2nd here today. And now there is a huge difference between 1st and 2nd place as J.K. Bernay will come off of turn number 11 and 12, and he will see the white flag here at Infineon Raceway. The final lap of the Carneros 100, Jake Query, as Bernay heads to you in turn 2.
He made it look like an easy Sunday drive through Sonoma Valley, but it wasn't necessarily that for J.K. Bernay. Keep in mind he had a couple of restarts. He had Charlie Kimball, and before that James Hinchcliffe beating and banging on him, but it didn't matter for J.K. Bernay. That number 7 Lucas Oil machine well on his way to another win, Mike.
Yeah, it's not as though he wasn't challenged, Jake. You're exactly right. That restart with 23 complete saw him challenged for sure by both Kimball and James Hinchcliffe, but he was up to the challenge. And Mark Janes, I should say Jake Query, he's back in the carousel and now off. So Mark Janes, he'll head to you for the final time this afternoon. J.K. Bernay heads to 7th.
Gary Peterson, Michael Andretti knocked Sam Schmidt off his perch as the perennial champion here in the Firestone Indy Light Series. He hired a Frenchman in the offseason that no one has ever heard of. Mike, he may be on the verge of going into the record book as a former series champion, getting Sam Schmidt Motorsports back to victory lane again this season. The number 7 Lucas Oil machine piloted by J.K. Bernay.
It has been a masterful performance by J.K. Bernay, and he will have just 2 corners remaining here before he will step onto the top step of the podium for the 5th time this season. J.K. Bernay will pilot the number 7 Sam Schmidt Motorsports Lucas Oil machine slowly across the start-finish line as he'll dip to the inside and salute his team on pit lane. Charlie Kimball will wind up 2nd. James Hinchcliffe will come across the line with a 3rd place finish.